Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive, this time on the Santa Clarita real estate market. More specifically, Saugus. So to help us kind of break down what's going on, we're using a recent update from a local expert, Connor with Honor. Gotta love a guy with a memorable sign-off.
Right.
He always ends his updates with Connor, with honor over and out. I love it, but anyway. This update is dated December 11th, 2024, and he's painting a very interesting picture. Low inventory, but high buyer drive. Now, you don't hear that every day.
It definitely is something that makes you pay attention. Usually when you hear low inventory, things are kind of cooling down a bit. But that doesn't seem to be the case. It makes you wonder, what is driving this demand?
Exactly. And what I like about Connor's update is that he really zooms in on Saugus. So we're talking single-family homes, condos, townhomes.
That's helpful, yeah, for someone who's considering all their options.
So to understand what's happening in Saugus, we need to start with that bigger picture first.
That's right. So across all of Santa Clarita, Connor reports 892 active listings. Now, keep in mind, this is everything from like a $160,000 fixer-upper to, a sprawling estate for over $5 million.
Talk about a range. But for the typical home, what are we looking at these days?
Yeah, so the median price is sitting at $829,000. And homes on average are spending about 60 days on the market. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Connor points out that popular areas like Saugus, Stevenson Ranch, Valencia, they're seeing even faster sales.
Why those specific areas?
Well, it's the desirability factor. It's, great schools, plenty of amenities, that classic Santa Clarita lifestyle that everybody wants.
It makes sense. So even though inventory is down compared to earlier this year, it sounds like these desirable areas are still
very hot.
Yeah, but with interest rates being what they are buyers really still that active?
Yeah, that's the surprising part. Connor specifically says there's this persistent buyer drive that's pushing the market forward. So it seems like those that are ready and able to buy.
Yeah.
The appeal of these neighborhoods outweighs the interest rate concerns.
So it's sounding like a classic seller's market then, wouldn't you say? Low supply, high demand, sellers having the upper hand.
Absolutely. And this is especially true in Saugus, which is our focus today.
Okay.
So let's dive into those numbers. Connor reports 50 single-family homes listed right now, plus 12 condos or townhomes.
So there's definitely some choices out there for our listeners, but when we're talking about Saugus, what kind of budget are we talking about here?
All right, so for single-family homes, the range is pretty wide. It's anywhere from $464,000 all the way up to $1.34 million. Condos and townhomes are a bit more condensed, between $464,000 and $725,000. And you notice how those starting prices overlap. That could be a major decision point.
Do I go for the smaller freestanding house or a larger condo or townhome?
Exactly.
For the same price.
Exactly. And it seems like those townhomes and condos are moving quickly. The average time on market for single-family homes in Saugus is 53 days, but for condos and townhomes, it's only $35.
Wow, that's a big difference. Shows how strong the demand is for that type of property. Now, Connor also mentioned the average price per square foot in Saugus is $491.96. Is that high? Is that low? I mean, I'm assuming for someone who's been following the Santa Clarita market, that number means something. But for someone who maybe hasn't been following it as closely, it'd be helpful to get some context there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Knowing how that price per square foot compares to other areas would give you a much better sense of whether Saugus is a relative bargain.
Right.
Or if you're really paying a premium for that desirability.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and focus on those condos and townhomes. A lot of buyers are drawn to them for various reasons. Maybe they're looking for something that's a little bit more manageable in terms of space or something with less maintenance. What are some of the key things to keep in mind if you're considering that route?
Well, Connor has some strong words of caution here, and they're worth paying attention to. He says, and I quote, "Check those HOA fees. They can be a lot higher than you expect, especially in newer developments, where, things like insurance costs are factored in."
It's so easy to get caught up in the excitement of a new place and just overlook those ongoing costs.
You're right. That HOA fee can make a significant difference in your monthly budget. And here's another important detail Connor points out. Not all condo communities qualify for FHA or VA loans.
So if you're a veteran or you're relying on a government-backed loan, your choices might be more limited.
Precisely. It's another factor to consider early in your search. And here's an interesting piece of advice from Connor. He really encourages buyers to go for a 3-bedroom unit if possible.
You hear that a lot. Why is that always the advice?
Well, think about it from a long-term perspective. A 3-bedroom unit is likely to appeal to a wider range of buyers down the line if you decide to sell. It also offers more flexibility for growing families, or even just having that extra space for a home office or a guest room.
So you're really future-proofing your investment.
Right.
But of course, you have to balance that against the potentially higher cost of a larger unit.
Absolutely. It's all about understanding, your needs and priorities.
Okay, now, Connor also had some really strong opinions about new construction, and I think this is particularly relevant in an area like Santa Clarita, where there's always new developments popping up.
Yeah, he does. And his advice is very clear. Have a real estate agent represent you from the very start, even before you step foot in a model home.
Hmm. Why is that so crucial to have an agent involved that early on?
Well, when you visit a new development, you're usually dealing with a salesperson who represents the builder. You're very knowledgeable, they're friendly, but their primary loyalty is to the builder, not to you as the buyer.
So while they might seem helpful, they're ultimately trying to get the best deal for the builder, not necessarily for me.
Exactly. Having your own agent levels the playing field. They can advocate for your interests, help you negotiate, and make sure you're getting a fair deal. They understand the nuances of new construction contracts and can really guide you through the process.
So it's like having a trusted advisor in your corner.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
here's the best part. In many cases, the builder actually pays your agent's commission. So you're not necessarily incurring an extra cost by having your own representation.
That's fantastic. You get that expert guidance without having to pay extra for it. Now, Connor also had some advice about how to approach those initial visits to new developments. He mentioned a website where you can actually find new homes without registering. Why do you think he stressed that?
Well, I think it's a savvy move. Think about it. When you register at a new development, you're handing over your contact information to the builder. You're opening yourself up to potentially a barrage of sales calls and emails.
Yeah, it can feel very overwhelming, especially when you're still in those early stages of just exploring your options.
Connor's approach empowers you to control your own information. You can do your research, gather information,
Yeah.
and then decide if and when you want to engage with the builder directly.
So you're being an informed consumer.
That's right.
Now, before we move on to part two, where we're going to delve deeper into some of Connor's insights on affordability and long-term value, what are some of the key takeaways that you think our listeners should be thinking about?
I'd say the big ones are, Saugus is definitely a seller's market right now. Low inventory, high buyer demand, especially in those desirable neighborhoods. HOA fees are a crucial factor to consider, especially when comparing condos and townhomes to single-family homes. And when it comes to new construction, having your own agent from the get-go can make a world of difference.
Excellent points. We'll pick up right where we left off in part two, so be sure to join us for more insights on navigating the Saugus real estate market.
Picking up where we left off, we were talking about Connor's advice to aim for that 3-bedroom unit. As with all things real estate, there's always nuances to consider.
Right. Question those assumptions. See if they hold up in your specific situation. Sure, a 3-bedroom might have broader appeal down the line, but what if your priorities are different?
Exactly. It comes down to what you value most.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a single person
Mm-hmm.
or a couple, and you really prioritize, a spacious living area over an extra bedroom, that 2-bedroom condo might be a perfect fit.
Yeah. Or if you're on a tight budget, that extra bedroom could push you into a higher price bracket or a less desirable location.
Precisely. And those trade-offs become even more complex when you factor in those HOA fees that we were talking about.
Okay, so let's play out a couple scenarios here. Let's say you're choosing between two properties, similar prices, around that $700,000 mark.
Okay.
I'm following. Option one is a 2-bedroom condo in a fantastic community. We're talking resort-style amenities, pool, gym, clubhouse, the works. But all that luxury comes with a pretty hefty HOA fee, let's say $600 a month. Okay. Option two is a 3-bedroom townhome in a more modest community with a more basic HOA, maybe around $300 a month.
So on paper, the townhome seems like a better deal. More space, lower HOA.
But there's always a but in real estate, right?
Right.
What are some other factors that might tip the scales?
We got to consider the location and the lifestyle. So that condo, well, smaller, and with a higher HOA, might be in a much more walkable neighborhood. Maybe close to shops and restaurants. You could save money on transportation. Maybe you go out less because you've got all those amenities at your fingertips.
So it's not just about the numbers on a spreadsheet. It's how those numbers impact your daily life, your enjoyment of the space.
That's right. And that's where working with a knowledgeable real estate agent who understands your individual needs and priorities becomes really invaluable.
They can help you weigh those trade-offs, make the right decision for you.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, speaking of presenting a property in its best light, Remember Connor's advice about the first glimpse presentation?
Oh, yeah.
It's that crucial first impression. When potential buyers are scrolling through those listings online,
And in a market with low inventory and lots of eager buyers, those photos can make or break a sale.
for sure.
A poorly lit photo.
Mm.
Or a cluttered room. Could be all it takes for a buyer to move on to the next listing.
Okay, so what's the secret? How do you capture that attention, make them want to see more?
Well, Connor's advice goes beyond just decluttering and depersonalizing.
Mm-hmm.
He suggests making sure that each room is presented as it was intended to be used.
Okay, so picture a spare bedroom. It's been turned into a home office.
Right.
How do you stage that to appeal to buyers?
You want to create that visual cue that says this is a bedroom. So put a bed in there, some nightstands, maybe a dresser. Help buyers envision themselves sleeping in that space, not working.
Oh. Setting the stage for a play, you're
Yeah.
creating a scene, tells a story.
Exactly.
Invites the audience to imagine themselves as part of that story.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And remember Connor's anecdote about the cop,
Mm.
the fireman, and the Marine, each with rooms dedicated to their professions.
Yeah, it was a funny story, but it highlighted a real point. We might love those personal touches as sellers, but it could actually prevent buyers from seeing the potential of the space.
You're creating a blank canvas that allows buyers to paint their own dreams onto it.
Okay. Now back to new construction for a moment. Connor was pretty adamant about having a real estate agent represent you from the very beginning. Why is that so important?
Well, when you walk into a model home, you're typically greeted by a salesperson who represents the builder. They're going to be very knowledgeable, enthusiastic. But remember, their loyalty is to the builder, not to you.
So while they're showing you all the bells and whistles, they're not necessarily looking out for my best interests as a buyer.
Precisely. They're trying to get the best deal for the builder, which may not be the best deal for you.
Okay.
Having your own agent ensures that you have someone in your corner who's solely focused on your needs and priorities.
They can help me navigate those complex contracts, negotiate on my behalf, make sure I don't get caught up in the excitement, and overlook something important.
That's right. And don't forget, the builder often pays the buyer's agent's commission. So you're not necessarily out any extra money by having your own representation.
It seems like a no-brainer. Now, Connor also mentioned a website where buyers can search for new homes without registering. Why do you think he emphasized that?
I think it reflects a growing concern about data privacy. When you register at a new development, you're giving the builder your contact information, which opens you up to potentially unwanted sales calls and emails.
You're giving up control of your own information.
Right. Connor's approach empowers you to gather information, do your research, without feeling pressured or bombarded.
You're staying in the driver's seat of your home buying journey.
Exactly. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I wanted to touch on something we mentioned earlier, the idea of affordability.
With high home prices and potentially high HOA fees, definitely a top concern for buyers in Saugus.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the sticker price of the property. You have to consider the ongoing costs of ownership, those recurring expenses that can add up quickly.
So what are some key things to keep in mind when you're trying to assess the true affordability of a property?
Well, first and foremost, those HOA fees are crucial. As we discussed earlier, they can vary widely, and they can significantly impact your monthly budget. So don't just focus on the mortgage payment. Factor in those HOA fees as well.
You're looking at the total cost of ownership, not just that initial purchase price.
Exactly. And this is where those trade-offs that we were discussing earlier come into play. Sometimes a property that seems more expensive up front, like that condo with a higher HOA fee, could actually end up being more affordable in the long run if it means you're saving money on things like transportation or entertainment.
It's all about understanding your individual needs and priorities, making choices that align with your overall budget and lifestyle.
Precisely. And this brings us back to the importance of working with a knowledgeable real estate agent who can help you navigate those complexities, make informed decisions.
Someone who can help you see the bigger picture, make sure you're not just getting a good deal on a house, but a good deal on a life.
Well said. Now in part 3, we'll explore some final insights from Connor, including his advice on how to maximize your home's value and appeal to buyers.
So be sure to join us for the final installment of our Saugus Real Estate Deep Dive. All right, we are back for the final part of our deep dive into the Saugus real estate market. So, before we wrap things up here, what other gems did Connor have to share with us?
Well, one thing that really stood out to me was that Connor mentioned that, even with Saugus, the economy potentially improving and with interest rates kind of remaining high, that there's still a really strong buyer drive. It really speaks to the desirability of Saugus.
It does. It makes you wonder, what is it about Saugus?
Yeah, that there's excellent schools, the sense of community. Maybe it's that California lifestyle that you just can't find everywhere.
Yeah, you're right. It's not just about the house itself. It's about the lifestyle.
Exactly. And Connor touched on that. He emphasized the importance of really understanding what drives value in a specific market.
So in Saugus,
Yeah.
things like proximity to good schools, access to amenities, even just the overall feel of a neighborhood can really significantly impact a home's price.
So it's not just about, square footage, number of bedrooms. It's about those intangible qualities that make a house a home.
That's right. And having that local expert, like Connor, who really understands those nuances, can be so valuable. He knows what buyers are looking for and what elements really contribute to long-term value appreciation in Saugus.
So you're getting that insider knowledge,
Exactly.
giving you an edge in the market.
Now, speaking of gaining an edge, Connor shared a really clever strategy for sellers. He calls it the first glimpse presentation.
Right. We've talked about
Yeah.
the importance of those first impressions,
Yeah.
especially online,
Yeah.
making sure those photos grab a buyer's attention.
And Connor takes it a step further. He suggests that sellers go beyond just decluttering and depersonalizing. He really recommends ensuring that each room is presented as it was intended to be used.
Okay. Can you give me an example? Sure. So imagine a spare bedroom that's currently being used as a home office.
Yeah.
It's got the desk, the computer files, the whole setup. But to a buyer, it might not read as a bedroom.
Right.
It might feel more like an office space.
Yeah.
And it could limit their ability to really see themselves living there.
So you're saying the key is to stage that room as a bedroom, even if it's not currently being used that way.
Precisely. Put a bed in there, some nightstands, maybe a dresser. It creates that visual cue for potential buyers, saying, hey, this is a bedroom. It's ready for you.
Well, it's about that storytelling.
It is.
You're setting the stage. You're inviting buyers to imagine their own lives unfolding in that space.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just individual rooms. It's about presenting the entire home in a way that highlights its best features, creates a welcoming atmosphere, and really evokes an emotional connection with buyers.
You want them to fall in love with the space,
Right.
envision themselves living there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As we wrap up our deep dive into the Saugus real estate market, what stands out to you as the most important takeaway for our listener?
I think it's that real estate is about so much more than numbers and transactions. It's about people, their dreams, their lifestyles.
It is.
And approaching the market with that understanding allows you to make decisions that truly align with your goals and values.
Well said.
So to our listeners, as you continue your real estate journey in Saugus, remember Connor's advice. Do your research. Work with a trusted agent. And don't be afraid to ask questions. And we'll leave you with this final thought. In a market as dynamic as Saugus, what factors, beyond just price and size, will truly determine the long-term value of your investment?
That's a great question to consider. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Saugus real estate market. Until next time.